after 5 o'clock, and if you do not know what time it is, well, it's time for the show. And today on the show, we've got a guest that is not only a superhero, not only a dad, not only saves childhood itself. Well, he's been called many things, but on this show, we'll call him by his natural-born name. We'll also cover all of the stuff that they've got going on, and we'll get you prepped for the week to come. Roll intro. Let's get the show started.
Live from beautiful downtown Kahului, on the #1 island destination on planet Earth, the Valley Isle, Maui. From the AKU studio at Halfway to Hell Plaza, it's live! And now, a man that's known far, but not wide. It's Shaggy!
To the show, if you've never seen the show before, well, this is pretty much it. Joining me in the studio is a guy that, okay, can I be honest? I stalk you on Facebook. It's Dean Wong.
That's right, Dean. How you doing?
Dean. You know, it's so funny. Every time I say your name, I think of the character out of Community.
Oh, do
Yeah. You don't ever do that, do you? Like, put your name in interest Dean places?
You know, Dean, yeah, I have, actually. I have done that. And with a name like Dean, it's pretty easy to do. I mean, I always talk about, you know, if you've made the Dean's list and, yeah, I have lots of different scenarios where I've stuck my name in, and some of them I can't say on radio.
So people could call you a very punny man.
A very punny man, yes. Very. They definitely could, yeah. I have a sense of humor that's to be reckoned with. Hopefully you'll hear some of it today. You never know.
Yeah, not on this show. You never know anything.
Know.
Especially after watching it, sometimes you know even less than you started with.
Uh-huh.
But I kind of want to go like all over the map with you today, if
Good.
That's all right.
I like that, yeah.
Okay, cool. Because, you know, structured interviews, we do not do so well.
That would take notes.
Yeah.
And, you know, a little planning, and hey, who's got time for that?
Not me, not in this building.
Exactly.
Oh, but so let's just start off with the basics. First off, your name is Dean Wong, and you are a superhero.
Well, no. I mean, really, obviously not a superhero, but I do my best.
Yeah.
I did have a superhero complex growing up. I really had every intention growing up to save the world, and I don't know if it was the way I was raised or the expectations my Pake Chinese father had for me, you know, that it gave me that complex, but I did sort of think I could single-handedly save the world. And so, you know, I had, when I finished college, for instance, I went to Africa. It was my first sort of plight after college, and I went there thinking I could single-handedly, you know, save Africa and all the starving children and everything that was going on there.
Okay, not to sound like overly obvious here, but
Right.
you'd seen a map.
Right.
You know Africa is kind of one of those large places.
Yeah, it's big.
What made one individual, one crazy individual, shall I say, like you, think that you could just go change the world?
Well, why not? I mean, I think I grew up with a little bit of a Pollyanna attitude, and I've always believed that one person can make a difference, no matter what it is they set their mind to do, whether it's good or bad. And that historically, when you look at the people that I idolized as a child, like Martin Luther King and, you know, and Gandhi and, you know, all these things, these were one individuals that we look at, whether it's Florence Nightingale or Mother Teresa, and they have single-handedly changed, you know, the destiny of time. So why not me, and why not you? You know, I think that given the fact that we take advantage of every opportunity and we apply ourselves thoroughly and commit ourselves to what we're doing, we can certainly make a difference, whether it's in our community, it's in our home, or abroad. You know, I definitely think we can do that.
So it's safe to say that you're not a guy that exactly sits around and puts his feet up on the couch a lot.
I don't, and I wish I could, because there are times I just wish I could sit down. But to be honest with you, even in my own house, I don't sit down. If I have free time, I clean something, you know, or I plant something, or I paint something, or I fix something. But I'm definitely not a sitter.
See, you're one of those guys that makes the rest of these guys, like me, look bad. So thanks, Dean. Thanks.
Well, someone's got to get it done, right? You know.
Well, you know, I'm trying to steer away from the superhero thing, but the more I keep coming, you know, with these questions, and you keep coming with those answers, because that's how interviews work.
Right.
You keep sounding more and more like a superhero to me.
Not at all. You know, the thing is, I think when you are going to college or you're finishing high school, and I say this to young people, there's an expectation that you're going to know what you're going to do with your life, or at least start to figure it out. And it doesn't, for some people, they're really, I think, fortunate if it works that way. For me, it didn't really. I mean, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I had different ideas, but really I rolled with destiny, and I let the universe sort of take me and provide opportunities for me. And I used to say when I was younger, the key to having opportunities in your life is to not say no. When an opportunity comes your way, say yes and go at it wholeheartedly, and not be afraid of it or let fear, rule or dictate, what you do with yourself. Don't put limitations on yourself.
Wow. I have a friend that told me the coolest thing about fear. Do you know what fear is?
I personally know what fear is, but I'm curious to hear your explanation.
Fear is broken down, and it's an acronym. It's false events appearing real.
Yeah, that's good.
Huh. And do you say that, like, growing up, you had a lot of situations where these false events that were appearing real, like insurmountably real, and you still went for it? Was there ever these moments in your youth that you just thought, you know what? I'm crazy. I've got to be insane.
No, and I'll tell you why. I didn't ever think that. My father immigrated to America in 1911. He came with the whole Dr. Sun Yat-sen and all the Chinese people that were really leaving China during the exile of China in 1910. My father was born in 1900. He was 11 years old when he stowed away in a rice crate and ended up, here on the shores of Hawaii. And then he had to make a life for himself here. And it started, by just doing whatever anybody would let an 11-year-old child do, on the streets, and eventually ended up in a hotel and then doing dishes and stocking storage rooms and, all of that stuff. My father went from that to having been in the First World War and through the Depression and then the Second World War, and then finally started making a life for himself, in Honolulu after that, and working his way through the kitchen, dishwashing, and doing prep in one of the hotels. And eventually, in about the mid-50s, late 50s, some of the people that he worked for in a hotel helped him start his own restaurant in Chinatown in Honolulu. And so by the time I came along, mid-late 60s, he had established a business for himself and was only then just now learning to speak English. And if you can imagine everything that he had to get through to the place where he could provide for me on a regular basis, I never once felt growing up that I had the right to complain, or that if he couldn't do it given the circumstances that he had to grow through to create a living and a life for himself here, then certainly given all the opportunities that he provided for me, there was no reason I shouldn't succeed.
Wow.
It's hard to complain when you have a father like that.
I just had a dad that threatened to put his foot in my ass every other day. But
he did that too, but all kids need that.
Yeah. But, it seems like this fairy tale story of Dean Wong that the media is absolutely in love with. I've read all the pieces about you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, no, you are the closest thing that I know to a celebrity on this island.
Oh, that's so not true.
No,
okay.
seriously.
Right. I mean, real celebrities living on this island,
Where? Yeah. Please tell me that they're not on this show. Well, they are now, okay. But I see that it does seem that the local media, especially, is in love with Dean Wong more as the person versus the very important real world responsible guy that you are over at Imua Family. I mean, does this ever seem like? Do you ever worry about sometimes that? And I know this is going to seem weird, but you're such a likable guy. Do you ever worry that you're too likable?
No, it never actually occurred to me. And trust me, for those who know me well, I definitely have, I won't call it my dark side. I'll call it my, questionably unlikable side.
See, even your badness, even your evilness is nice and sunny.
Oh, dear.
I just, and I've read all of these like little pieces about you and all the stuff that people say about you. By the way, Auntie Stacy says hi.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. So you can wave at the camera and just say, hey.
Oh, that's right. Hey, Stacy.
Yeah.
I think you're talking about Muniz.
Yes.
Okay, I know several Stacys. Okay.
See, once again, you're popular, you're good looking, you have that tie.
Oh,
but, let's talk about the guy that Dean Wong is at work. Okay. So what is it exactly that if a dummy, say me, came in off the street or with his own television show and asked you, who you are and what you do, how do you tell people what it is that your job is?
Well, I say that I'm really lucky that I have a great job because I have the opportunity to lead an incredible staff of people at Imua Family Services. And when people know exactly what Imua Family Services is, that it's an organization that provides early childhood development therapeutic services for children who have developmental delays or special needs or disabilities, and that the work that we do really helps to move families forward so that their children can reach their full potential in life, no matter what that is. And the reason I say that I'm fortunate and I'm blessed to do that is because, first of all, the staff at IMU are amazing. They're committed. They're probably the best professionals in early childhood development, whether it's occupational therapy or speech-language pathology or physical therapy or special instruction, or our social workers who are our care coordinators. These are all people that are very committed to the work that we do in the organization, and it makes it an easy organization to pilot in that way.
Wow. Okay, now,
Yeah.
once again, let's see. You work with children. You clean the house.
Yeah.
And mankind is sucking for the rest of us right now.
No. You know, here, let me put a little graphic reality into it. You know,
Ooh,
I have
we like graphic.
reality.
Yes.
So, and I when I go to organizations and corporations and institutions and I talk about our organization, it's always better to sum things up on a personal level, the way that people can relate to. And for instance, do you have children?
Yes.
Okay, how many?
One.
One child. Me too. All right. So you can remember when you were expecting that child. And what happens is, and the natural tendency for all of us when we start to expect anything in the world, is we start to make plans. You know, we think about the way we're going to raise the child, and if it's a boy or a girl, you know, what we're going to do with them, how we're going to teach them to ride their bikes and throw a ball, and all of the different things, places we'll go camping and the adventures that we're going to have together. And this is true for all the parents that access IMUA Family Services too. The glitch is that sometimes, you know, for whatever reasons unbeknownst to us, sometimes nature throws a curveball, and we have children that come out with various types of disabilities, or later after birth, which the child seems completely developing, typically suddenly takes a turn and starts to digress or regress and starts to not develop the way that they're supposed to, or other things start to set in. And what happens is it shatters all of the illusions of the family. And, you know, right now my son is 2.5 years old, and every day, you know, because of the business I'm in and because of what I know, I get to sort of monitor his development and his reaching those milestones. And is he stacking blocks on top of each other? Is he starting to count and separate things? Can he recognize, you know, the differences in shapes and colors? But when that starts to not happen for a family, or it starts to go in a different direction, you know, everything changes for that family.
Well, you know, can I ask the obvious
Sure.
question, though? What if the kid is just having a lazy day and those blocks look too damned hard?
Well, there's a difference between a child refusing to do something or not wanting to do something versus not having the ability or the capability to do something. And it becomes very apparent which one it is after a little while. And of course, it's something you have to pay attention to at time. Speech is a perfect example. And well, and here's a perfect example. When my son first started to talk, he was using all kinds of words here and there and everything. We were all excited the fact that he was talking and using individual words. And then he stopped. And there weren't words for a little while, and I kept thinking, gosh, he was doing so well. Why would he stop talking? I haven't heard him start to put two words together or anything in a while. So I mentioned it to one of my speech pathologists at IMUA. I was like, you know, he was doing so well, and suddenly, you know, I'm not hearing him talk too much. And she said, well, does he have to talk? I said, well, what do you mean? And she says, well, you know, sometimes parents get to the point where they're so instinctual to their child's needs that they give them the drink before they say they're thirsty. They give them food before they get to say that they're hungry. Their toys are all within reach. So, and especially boys, little boys are lazy. Older boys can be lazy too. But if a child doesn't need to speak, then often they don't speak. And if you don't make it so that they have to formulate words and put words together, then they may not do that. And so it was just a simple correction of putting the toys that he liked the most a little out of reach, not giving him something before he asked for it, or making him ask for something before we gave it to him. And suddenly all of that speech came back and the words started to flow. And sometimes those are just the simple adjustments that we help families make. And it's, you know, a lot of families they're super intuitive. No one wants to hear that baby cry, you know, or that child break down and cry. So we try to intervene all the time. But if we intervene, then we don't give them the skills that they need to speak for themselves.
See, to me, it sounds like you're breaking down basically the science of a family.
Well, there's a lot of science behind therapy, of course, and there's a lot of science behind how we can help children with autism reach their full potential, or a child has Down syndrome, or children who are deaf, and how we teach American Sign Language. All of that is based in science, and a lot of it is based in science and medicine working together. And then a lot of it is based on sort of the holistic approach of family and how you support each other, and all of those things, and acceptance and inclusion together. All of those things are what are going to help our children grow.
Well, I mean, I see this as like, okay, in the eyes of the public, most people, when they go into problems with a developmentally challenged child, they think of only the child themselves as the only dynamic that's affected by this problem. You guys kind of approach it as this child is a part of a family dynamic, and everybody's affected by it.
Right, and in fact, more so than a family dynamic, it needs to be thought of as a community dynamic, because really the entire community is impacted. And I'll say that historically there was this sort of movement or consideration, and not intentionally. I mean, Emua Family Services started 67 years ago with children with polio. Things have changed a lot in that time.
So that makes you like somewhere in your 80s right now.
Exactly. We Asians carry our age very well, right?
Oh, very good.
No, I didn't start the organization, but
actually, I'm 15.
Are you?
Oh, there you go.
That hair will come. One day it'll come in.
One day.
Yeah, I know. We used to basically take people with a disability and sort of separate them, right? It would be like a home for people with disabilities, or a institution where children with certain learning abilities could go to, or a classroom within a public school setting that was for special education or children with special needs. And this is historically how we taught, so we could gear the teaching towards this group of children. But in reality, what we were doing was separating all those people from the rest of community. So community didn't know how to respond, how to talk to, how to interact with, and special buses, special areas of seating, special parking, special all kinds of things. But really all of that special consideration, which I know all has great intention, is really separating a community of people from us and not integrating them with us. It seems like,
as much as we like to toss around the word special when we're talking about developmentally challenged people, we don't treat them so damn special.
Right. And again, it's not intentional. We think we're doing something that's good for them, when really what we all need to do is realize that every single one of us is a person with special abilities and special limitations. At some place or some point in our life, there's things that we do well, there's things that we don't do very well, and there's areas that we have to work on and develop and grow and overcome and all of that. And then there's just some people that know that they have certain limitations, that they haven't tapped into what the possibilities are, and maybe the potential of this person is very different than the potential of this person. But the bottom line is we're all just people, and we're all living in the same community, and so we need to all support each other in that same capacity and provide room and space for all of us to be, the people that we are destined to be.
Okay, so now that we know what it is you do, and really, if I was a person walking off the street, I'd be like, why is this guy still talking to me? See, once again, you're just too nice, Dean.
No, okay.
Okay, but now that we know what you do, let's talk into the methodology behind this, because when you're dealing with children, especially young children, we all do the little hand exercises, pick them up, move their legs around, and things like that. And when by the time that your service comes into it, we've realized that these signs aren't working, and certain developments, maybe speech, maybe motor control, fine motor control, maybe this stuff isn't happening. At the point that the parent brings the child in, what is it that you guys do? How is it that you assess and work these kids through a program?
So it happens over a period of time. And first of all, like what you said is exactly right. There needs to be assessment. There needs to be evaluation, which looks at the entire environment of the child. What do they have access to within their home? What don't they have access to? Who is raising the children? Who are they spending the most time with? How are they being spoken to? What are the opportunities that the child is being given for development? And look at that. And then we have what we call care coordinators. They're social workers that work at evaluating that situation with a team, and sort of saying, given this child's home scenario and what they have available to them, what are the ways that we can help the child grow and develop and work into productivity and and reach their milestones, and or what are the milestones going to be for this child depending on what the limitations could be.
Just speaking as a former child myself here,
Yeah.
have you ever went into a house with your evaluators and assessors and found out that actually the kid's normal, the family is screwed up?
Okay, well, here's the nice guy. Of course, we don't put it that way mildly, but what we do is say that the family has room to develop, and teaching the child is always partly teaching the family. And I'm certainly not going to compare children to dogs, but let's use this example. If you've ever taken a dog to an obedience training class, they spend more time talking to the owner of the dog, teaching the owner how to command and work with the animal more than, of course, the child. And likewise, when we work with children at home in their natural environment is where we do the therapy. We're working with the whole family, the caregivers, if it's a single mom, a single dad, or a foster parent, whoever the family makeup is. We're working with the family as a unit and saying, all right, so this is where Kavika has challenges, and this is how you're going to work with Kavika, because it's not about a 1-hour therapy session that's going to fix things. It's about working with the environment to make adjustments so that Kavika can learn and do the best that Kavika can do in that situation. And so it is working with encompassing the entire family.
Well, you also said environment. So when we're talking about I guess, environmental influences on developing children. What kind of stuff do you put into a house with somebody capable of getting cut, bumping their head, starting fires, that actually assist in the development at a normal pace?
Right.
I mean, I'm not
so obviously you have to look at, there's primary factors that have to be dealt with first. Children's safety, nutrition, health issues, and so there's a lot of complex family situations where sometimes drug use is involved in a family, and so those issues have to be dealt with. Sometimes the family environment is not safe. But we also have to look at families and not judge them based on what they have and what they don't have, because a family that is struggling with homelessness does not necessarily mean that that's not the that child not being with their loving parents isn't a good environment for that child. So we're not trying to make those kinds of judgments. We're basically saying, based on the environment and what kind of resources can we bring to this family. Sometimes families are struggling to exist here on this island, but a lot of it's because they're not tapped into the resources that are available for them. And so definitely before we can approach the development of the child, we have to give the family some resources so they can succeed. If you just give them the tools to help their child develop, but then you haven't given them fundamental tools like where can they access food, where can they get nutrition, where can they get diapers, where can they get other things that they need, then you're setting the whole family up for failure and that child.
Oh, okay, because I'm kind of curious, what family does not know where diapers are sold?
Well, what if they can't purchase diapers? Then there are places that provide diapers for free for families that can't go to Long's drugstore and buy diapers. Diapers are really expensive, but maybe they don't have the opportunity even to clean cloth diapers or whatever. But there are resources that you can get diapers for families, and we as an example at IMU are always taking in donations of babies' things, and that are cleaned and everything like that, and then we can pass them on to other families who need them. Families have resources, so that is definitely a huge part of providing services for children is providing the families with the resources they need.
So I think it's safe to say when you guys over at Imua get into the crap with this stuff, you get into like literally the crap.
Yeah, we get into cleaning out all kinds of crap.
Wow.
Yeah. But, it's effective and we know it works, and it's really important because those first 6 years of any child's life are the most critical brain development time for a child, and what you don't do within those first 6 years is going to have an impact on that child for the rest of his or her adult life. So it's really important that we get in there early. So when a parent starts to notice anything that seems unusual to them, or a regression in behavior, or not being able to connect with other people or make eye contact, or not formulating words and sentences, or not being able to concentrate on certain things, then it is time to call Imua Family Services, because our services are free for families, and it doesn't hurt just to have someone look at the situation and give advice and help the family out.
Yeah, but it's not like the kind of family services where, like, if I'm having an argument with my wife about Safeway or Costco Poke, you're not going to come in and solve that, right?
It's not child protective services,
Oh.
which is very necessary in certain situations, but that's not what we are. No, we're childhood development. And so it's about...
My wife says I am still a developing child sometimes, honestly.
I've heard that about a lot of grown men, including myself, just so you know. And it's the Peter Pan syndrome, right?
It is.
We just don't want to grow up.
No.
We're boys at heart.
So, and I know, and it seems like to me, because, you know, yes, you're tackling very hard issues, sometimes with multiple people for one scenario just to get snapped out. But I got to think, though, you're working with kids. At the end of the day, can't you say that you have a really fun job?
Absolutely. These children, our children, are bright, they're cheerful, they have big smiles, they want to be loved, they're very caring, they're vivacious like all children are. And actually we have a tag at EMU, it's called Play It Forward, because really all of the therapy we do it's not clinical. We definitely do therapy through play, because that's how children learn. They learn through play. So we engage the parents in playing with their children, we engage the child in play, and that's how they grow and they develop and they learn. But we give parents very specific tools to play with their child so their child can move from this step to the next step.
And I know this is going to sound really weird, but it is a very important question for parents.
Okay.
Let's say that you're a parent of a single child,
Mhm.
right? There's only one child in the household. Do you guys come in and teach the child self-play or how to entertain yourself with your environment versus, you know, having to interact with a lot of people? Because let's say mom is a little crazy and maybe has a crazy schedule and is crazy tired and
Sure.
doesn't have time for as much play as the child needs to be getting.
Mhm.
Do you go in and teach that child, like, look, when mom and dad's not around, you take these blocks and eat this eraser?
Right.
No, you don't do that. But
No, we don't.
do you
Yeah.
teach them how to play?
Everything we do is geared around play. So yes, children are learning to play. I don't know about the term self-play or a child playing on their self. Really, children need constant stimulation at that age, and they have to be interacted with. We have play groups, and so we do have some parent and toddler play groups where parents can bring their children together, because children learn also from mirroring other children and interacting with them, so they do need that social interaction, even at different developmental stages. So play is a huge portion of how we teach children. We are about to open an inclusion preschool at EMUA Family Services. This will be our new 5th major program, and it's starting with a new building that we're developing here on Wakea Avenue in Kahului. But it's an inclusion preschool, which means that there's a percentage of children that have that are not typically developing, and then there's a percentage of children that are typically developing, and the typically developing children percentage is actually higher than, because it provides mirroring opportunities and relationships for the children who are challenged in their develop to kind of proceed forward at a better rate. It also then teaches the typically developing children things like compassion and helping and sharing and physically getting more involved in helping another child who can't do some things for themselves. So it's a very unique sort of concept that, it's taking on national gain, sort of the whole aspect of inclusion, and especially at this particular age group.
Okay. So once again, let's go through this list here.
Okay.
So when you're bored at home, you do laundry and clean up.
And take care of my 2.5-year-old. Yeah.
Take care of the 2.5-year-old. Okay. And your day job, you help fight developmental disabilities.
Sure.
You're teaching normal kids empathy and compassion at a new center that you're
Sure.
working on.
Except we don't call them normal.
We
Call them typically developing. Or typical,
Actually, I
yeah.
call no kids normal.
Okay, good.
None. But then you're doing all of this, and you still have time to find that tie.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There's always got to be time to shop.
Superhero. Superhero. You are one, man. I got to say it. It sounds like an amazing job. I mean, really, I'm kind of envious. I work with miserable adults every day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Do
How's
you know
how's that working for you?
Man, I am so depressed.
Hey, you work with some great people here. Dana Fulton,
Yeah.
former EMUA client. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Her first more than 3 years of life was spent at EMUA Family Services receiving therapy. She learned to speak through EMUA Family Services. She learned to eat at EMUA Family Services, and she had a huge team of therapists. She was born with a lot of complications. Her family relied on EMUA to provide services to help her survive the first 3+ years of her life.
Oh, I'm sorry I got to cut it short there because, one, we got to take a break here, and two, I wish you guys would have taught her about Peter. Okay. But we'll take a short one here, come back with more of Dean Wong's Superhero.
Oh, my.
Oh, no, it's not that bad.
To infinity and beyond.
We'll be back.
Want to get your message out there, but don't know how? AKU can help. We have several services that are easily accessible. A hot set, or open mic, is the easiest and least expensive way to get your message out there. Anyone can do it. Just call us at 871-5554, set up an appointment, and then show up at the designated time. It's that simple. After completing our intro classes, you can become certified to utilize our Michael Clark studio for any kind of show you want to make. And once you finish the class or field camera certification, you'll be able to borrow our nifty cameras and audio equipment and go shoot projects outside of our studio. We can shoot in high definition, which ensures that your masterpiece will look great once it's edited. AKU regularly records and cablecasts select meetings of the Maui County Council on Channel 53. Give us a call at 871-5554 or visit us at 333 Derry Road in Kahului.
You're not sitting here.
Yes, I am.
Move. Give it to him hard.
No.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Why are you stabbing me with it? No.
They want to help,
Ow.
but don't know how.
Oh, you got...
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
Back here, channel 55, AKU TV, and an 88.5 FM on the radio. Joining me is a guy that has left his fortress of solitude, hung up his cape for the day, and is no longer with Lois. It's Superman. No, I mean Dean Wong. I do have to keep jokingly going back to the whole superhero thing, because it is not just me. It's not just that Dean Wong, darling of Maui media, exists. It's the fact that these parents that you help out, man, just think of you and your organization as a godsend. I mean, at the end of the day, do you have to have extra security to fight off the thanks?
Well, the few extra pounds that I have on me come from a lot of baking and cookies that people leave on my desk. So
I can imagine.
Yeah, I'm trying to curtail the amount of sugar intake I have.
Is there a point that you just say, stop it, no more cookies?
No more cookies. I would never say no more cookies. Those words would never come out of my mouth, no matter how tight the pants get. It's like, really? Cookies? Of course I'm going to take those.
I figured out the best way to be very health conscious. Mm-hmm. Buy a moped.
Oh, is that it?
Yes, because for every 2 pounds you gain, you lose 5 miles per hour.
That's good thinking.
And no, it works. I own one. My wife said, I'm going to keep you skinny or else.
Yeah.
I drive up the hill every day home, and right around, the middle of the month when I've been cheating on the cookies and stuff that come to the office, I'm not going that fast.
Imagine how fitter you'd be if you turned it into a bicycle.
Oh,
yeah.
Imagine how proud my parents would be. Yeah. He's not lazy.
Yeah,
oh.
exactly.
But now here's the thing. Speaking of lazy kids and stuff like that, I was a lazy kid, okay?
Yeah.
Very lazy.
Okay.
I like how you're just being very humble and saying, you? Really? No, not you.
Tell me about that. What was that like?
But because I was a lazy kid, my parents actually had concerns about my
future. Whether they were going to have to support you for the rest of their lives, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And it's like, and they used the good Southern spoke too, because
Right.
it's like, I don't want to say he's dumb, but he ain't smart.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the circles my parents talked in. But, you know,
Right.
me being a lazy kid,
Mhm.
I did have days where really being a very introspective, daydreaming, quote, lazy kid, I didn't really want to do a whole lot. And my parents, obviously not highly educated. We're from North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. And did you see our last SAT score on the national average?
No, it's one of the states I skipped over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good reason. Good call. Good call. But my parents would not be educated in what a benchmark is
Right.
for a child.
Right.
And when we're going down that developmental road, what needs to happen at what ages.
Right.
So right now, if there is just a quick mental rundown, you even being a father, you probably have your own god awful list that your kid is one day going to have to live up
Right.
to. What would you say is a proper timeline for development, let's say through the first 5 years of life?
5 years is a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, and by the way, if your child is, seeing a doctor or a pediatrician on any kind of regular basis, they actually give you these handouts from the time you first show up at the doctor with the child, or from the time the child is born. So you have these checklists to follow. So they give you them at the hospital before you leave the hospital. IMUA provides them to you before you leave the hospital. So they're definitely around. But if a parent themselves doesn't know what to look for, like when a child should start lifting up their body, in the first 6 months, and when they should start to roll over, and when they should start to crawl, and all of those sorts of good things, typically there's some other parent nearby that's going to tell you. They'll be like, "Oh, isn't your son doing this yet? Or isn't how old is he?" And there's always this comparison. I know at the playground, parents and I are always doing this together too. They're like, if they see two children that start to look the same size, they're like, "How old is your child?" "Oh, 2. My child's 2. And then you start to notice what they're doing and your child's doing. And
Yeah, but isn't that like child comparison? I mean, that's like, I got a Mercedes. Ooh, I got a Benz.
Well,
Mine's
there's some
blonde.
very obvious ones. Like maybe one's not willing to share a toy and the other one's more shareful. I mean, those sort of things people kind of let go. But if one is literally getting up and walking and climbing up the ladder and sliding down the slide, and the other one can't lift himself off the ground, people might want to check that, But the reality is also, if you are taking a child to see for regular pediatric visits, most of our children get referred to us through their pediatricians. The pediatricians know how to pick up on these things immediately, and they'll say, it wouldn't hurt, maybe give IMUA Family Services a call. I have a couple of concerns, and they will definitely look into this and help you figure this out. If it gets to be later, like after the age of 3, then oftentimes it's a child care provider or a daycare or a preschool that refers a family to IMUA Family Services, because those teachers realize that the child is not doing some things typically or at a typical developmental stage. And, some children are by the book. My son happens to be by the book. If it says at 18 months, this child will get up and walk and touch his nose, my child, the day he turned 18 months, would do those things. And it was ridiculous that he was like a textbook child. I was like, this is crazy. How can they know this? But then there's also...
Did he read the book?
I know. That's what I felt like. But then there's other... the consideration when you look at the checklist is sort of over a span of 3 months, typically. In each span of 3 months, a child will start to do these things in this time. And whether they're at the beginning of the span of 3 months or towards the end of it, that is not a consideration. A consideration is when we are getting 6 months past something or a year past something and they're still not able to do something. Then that's when you want to make those considerations.
Have you ever run into a case of a child just not wanting to do something?
Like the way you experienced it in your
Yes.
childhood? Yes.
I mean...
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, is children do require motivation in teaching. Most children don't want to share their toys. Most children don't want to, there's just things that they just naturally don't want to do. But it's all about, that's what the education process is. It's a part of socialization with our children so that they can start to interact the way that they should. Most little boys don't want to necessarily speak or learn to speak properly, but they have to be given that motivation to do that, So, yeah, children don't come with they just don't come with a handbook that says do this and do that with this particular child. And every child is different. Every child is individual. Every child is unique. And we do understand that. We're not trying to turn children into doing exactly the same thing at the same time as everybody else. We're just trying to make sure that that child reaches its potential or his or her potential in life and can do the things that they're going to need to succeed at whatever those are.
So, I mean, you're looking at a bunch of different kids here, and because in my head, me being the stupid host of this show, in my head, I'm looking at this whole scenario as like, okay, well, there's probably some sort of standardized test where you run the kids that are going through therapy through, and if they don't make it, then they fail a grade or they pass a grade. I mean, how is it that you measure their progress?
So we measure their progress based on development, like how they develop in their gross motor skills or their fine motor skills or their cognitive skills. So we can measure sort of how they're doing and what kind of potential that the child has. Aside from us, though, like take Imua Family Services out of the picture, which is just the service provider to help families, help the children, right? Sometimes there are real medical concerns that have an impact on what the child's development will be. And so we have to help educate the family and the community about this child's particular medical concerns and know that they have a different potential than another child. And so that's fine. We're going to work with that. But there is a point where a child enters the Department of Education system, the DOE, and the child will go to school. So whether they go to preschool or whether they start school at kindergarten or going on, they leave the kinds of services that we provide at Imua Family Services, and they start receiving services or education from the Department of Education. Now, what most families want is for their child to, go to preschool at age 3 and then at age 5 or age 6 start kindergarten and go through school.
At age 10, pay bills.
Exactly, right? But there's a transition that happens with a child that maybe has been recognized to have some developmental concerns, and they have to transition from the kinds of services that we provide to the kinds of services that are provided at the Department of Education. And so there is some evaluation that takes place. And if a child has critical developmental issues, they may end up being a part of special education classes at the Department of Education. And then they're going to provide similar kinds of services that we've been providing to help that child through the education process. It leaves what we're able to do for that child.
Yeah, and this is going to come from a place of, oh boy, I watched the government screw up many a thing. Have you ever really looked at what you guys do in the first formative years of a child's life at Imua Family Services, and then look at what the Department of Education does every year after that and just goes, man, why can they not get it together? I mean, it seems to me that the Department of Education really doesn't have the type of scruples to actually help kids in the system after they leave your service.
I wouldn't say it's scruples. I'd say it's resources. And, we're talking about a really big system, the national system that is huge, that's trying to provide a service for billions of children, you know what I mean, and are nationwide. And
has anybody figured out what that service is?
Well, it got you here.
North Carolina Public Education.
Yeah. So, it's sort of like trying to point a dart at the healthcare system and say, if I just change this one thing, the whole system will work. The reality is our country is way too big and when I say too big, there's so many people here that not necessarily one system is going to fit for everything,
So is it good to say that you are pro-Terminators wiping out the human race?
Definitely not. I'm the guy who's going to save the world, remember?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, I think the Department of Education is growing exponentially, and they're every year I think their standards are getting better and that they're doing a better job. When I look at the way the special ed teachers today in schools are looking at children with special needs, I think they're becoming more inclusive in their programming and making greater efforts. But it's not without some delays, of course, because they rely on public policy to make change, and they rely on public funding to make change, and teachers are highly underpaid for the work that they're doing, and they don't have the resources, and it's a very complicated system. But that is why, let's get back to that first 6 years of a child's life, those early childhood development years are so absolutely critical, because you have to give that child a lot of resources early on in order for them to succeed for the rest of their educational careers.
So what kind of, and I imagine, other than bottling up essence of Dean Wong go-get-'em spirit and given to these kids as some sort of IV injection, what kind of skills are you thinking, as far as you, Dean, the guy, are the most critical for kids to learn in those first 6 years? Like, I don't need to know how to work an iPad. I don't need to know how to turn on the TV. I don't need to know how to go fishing, but how not to get burnt, how to drink water, things like that. These are things as a kid that I think I need to know as far as survival of the fittest. Like, what is it that you, when you're looking at those first 6 years, think, God, these are the absolute bam top 3 critical skills a kid has to have?
Well, if I was going to you're asking me to narrow down into sort of 3 very simplified things. I think children need to want to and instinctively want to know how to communicate. So whether, whatever form of communication, and if you think historically for, all over the world, people have had different ways to communicate, whether it was initially through drums or whether it's American Sign Language or some other form of communication. I think people need to communicate, whether they end up using an iPad as their form of communication or have to use talking machines or things like that. People ultimately want to know how to communicate because they want to know how to express themselves. And every child is going to have ideals and dreams and visions and possibilities within themselves, and communication is going to be a huge factor in how they express themselves. And some children are going to learn to communicate very differently than the way you and I are communicating right now, but they still need a way to communicate and to share and to express themselves. So I think communication is key. It's essential. I think being allowed and being accepted to be individuals is huge, so that no matter whom the child is and what the child's condition and what their development is, that there is complete love and acceptance for that child to grow and nurture themselves and to, in a sense, become the individual that they're going to become. So communication, acceptance, that includes, the tolerance and all of that sort of stuff, that love. And then I think structure. Structure is hugely important for children because they come into this world sort of without it, and they're really relying on the parent, the caregiver, to provide the structure for that child to know, when to eat, when not to eat, when to stop eating, when to, like you said, not get burned, when to touch this, when to, things like that are going to keep them safe and keep them going through life. So they require structure as well, because that's also part of how they learn. So those are sort of my top 3 lists.
Okay.
I'm sure they're hugely debatable.
Communication, empathy, and structure. How many of those things exist in your house with your kid?
Can I tell you I had like a near-death experience yesterday?
If you're a father, all of them are.
Yes. Here's the deal. We were sitting, Sunday night is sort of like movie night, right? So we were sitting on the couch and we were watching Ice Age. Hadn't seen it before, and my son was hysterically laughing at the little squirrel character that just chases the nuts. There's no words on that, right? And I got up, I went into the kitchen, and I came back with a treat for him. Have you seen those little Welch's gummy made with real fruit snacks? They're like little gummy bears, but they're made with fruit juice and stuff like that. So I never give him a whole bag of those things. There's like 6 or 7 in a bag, but I brought him 2 back, and I'm really fussy about how much sugar he takes. I'm not a fan of sugar. I mean, I'm a fan personally, not a fan of dishing it out.
I was about to say, hypocrite, liar.
I know. So give him 2 of these things. We're sitting on the couch together, and he's past all of these danger stages, really. Those first year and second year, and he's eating everything. I mean, the kid loves to eat. I mean, he's going food, all the time. And in a second, I turned back and look at him, and he was turning blue. And I saw the eyes bug out, and that there's this horrific look on his face, and I knew instantly that he was choking on one of those gummy bears, And so I put my hand on his back and give him a full swat, and my finger reached in to do the scoop thing that you do with children are choking, and scoop it out, and I could feel this slippery gummy bear in the back of his throat, and if I tried to touch it, it was kind of going down further, and I had to get in behind it and pull that thing out, and then the gasp for air and the little bit of comes up and catches breath. I tell you, I was shaking the rest of the night, because here he is right under our supervision, in our care, sitting next to us, and I was thinking about how do little boys even manage to grow up? I mean, he's just constantly jumping off of things and climbing on things, and that sort of thing. And I do
not want to tell you what he does with his hands.
Yeah. No, exactly, right. But no, it's just that's the thing is that children they're learning constantly, you know, and this was nothing he had to learn. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, what do you tell him? Like, what did he do? He didn't do anything, and I gave him a gummy bear, and this is, you know, all that happened. But you just have to always be there for them, and you
Actually,
have to pay attention. Right?
If you were my parents, you would be like, yeah, you choked on that gummy bear, huh? Yeah, you don't clean your room, it'll happen again.
Yeah.
You know, they use that.
Yeah.
It's you got to create these opportunities in life to remind them who's boss.
Oh, I tell you, I saw every moment of my life flash before my eyes. So I just thought, this is not going to happen. You know?
Oh, man. And I mean,
So-
you know, kind of a damper the next day at work. I mean,
Yeah.
because I take it the entire office is like a fan club of the Sun. I've seen the you know, the Tino, I guess we could call them fan clubs. It's,
Yeah.
Is it safe to say soon he's going to be his own superhero?
Well, you know, he already thinks he is, of course, like every little boy. He's got the Batman cape and the Superman cape, and, you know, and he's running around the house. And he's really a fan of Buzz Lightyear. You know,
really?
yeah, we know all the Buzz Lightyear stuff. So, but that's great. You know, I really, I want him to grow up and think that he can do good in the world and make a difference and make change. And, you know, I've done some things in my life that I've succeeded at, and I feel like I've done well. And then there are things that, in some ways, I feel like, of course, I've fallen short, and I haven't lived up to all of the expectations I had for myself. So I think that's typical, and I also think that every father wants their child to succeed more than they did. That was my father's expectations on me, and I know I let him down from time to time, but I also know where I made him proud, and the same thing will be for him as well.
No, I figured out the perfect way to get my kids to like reach that bar where they accomplish more than me.
What's that?
Set the bar really low. Really low, like as low to the ground as you can get
This is a huge difference. If you grow up in a Chinese family like I did, that bar just constantly gets pushed up and up and up. It's
Sometimes not even realistically. You know?
No, not realistically.
Yeah.
I know.
You count to 100, your sister's counting to 5,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But okay, so we've got to this point of the show because it's coming down to the end, and,
Okay.
and before we get to the end of the show, please remind me we got to talk about Campy Mua.
Okay.
But I'm very interested in this home life of Dean Wong.
It's not that interesting, but yeah, go ahead.
Are you kidding me? I mean, like compared to my
Listen,
life?
when you have a 2.5-year-old, you're so exhausted at the end of the day. I mean, from the time he wakes up in the morning till when we put him down at night, it's all about what we can do to tire him out, so that when he goes to bed at 8:30, maybe I'm collapsed by 9:30, 10:30 if I have to do a little work at night before I go to bed.
Just between us guys.
Okay.
I mean, come on. You do all this work saving the world day in and day out. Have you ever just wanted to come home and maybe duct tape him down to the couch for a couple hours? You know, sip a mimosa maybe?
Yeah, you know what? He is complete. I know this is going to sound really cliche, but he is completely inspirational to me. And the time that we have together, because I do have to work so much, is very, very valuable to me. So, I mean, I don't want to say I've had to make sacrifices, because that's a terrible thing to say, because so many people sacrifice so much more. You know, so people who are parents know that they sacrifice a lot in their lives to provide for their children, whether it means they have to work more than one job or they have to work endless hours, they sacrifice time with their children. We make sacrifices for our children in order to provide for them and to provide what they need. And, you know, certainly I'm no different. You know, I make a lot of sacrifices, but the thing I try to sacrifice the least is the time I spend with him, because I'll never get that time back, for sure, you know, and he's growing so incredibly fast. So, yeah.
Well, they do that from time to time.
They do.
Yeah. Hey, what's one of the biggest things, though? I mean, as far as being a dad, like, because, you know, you come from this pushy family. I don't want to warn your son too loudly on this show, but
I do it all the time.
yeah. You know, I mean, is there a point where you're just sitting there going, should be making A's already?
Yeah.
I mean, you know?
Oh yeah, it's instinctively part of my makeup. To have ridiculously high expectations on him already. And I see it. I see my father coming out in me more and more as he grows, and as I become, you know, his disciplinarian and his teacher. And I write a blog on Imua Family Services website. We have a series of blogs on our website, but one that I write is called The Father of Oz, because I wanted to have sort of a father perspective in our blogs. Most of our blogs are written by some of our women therapists. And and I actually reflect back on more of what my father taught me and how I was raised by him, and then how that translates into modern day living today and parenting. And it's sort of an interesting thing, but that's really where I release my inner father out onto the world and sort of say, you know, this is right or wrong, this is how my father did it, and this was the result. But I find myself doing the same thing with my own child. So you can sort of see how that history repeats itself.
So that means like years from now, we're going to have your son probably in this show because my life is going nowhere. I'll still be here. We'll have him on the show and he'll be like, yeah, my dad was so hard, pake.
Yeah, exactly. High expectations.
And you know you're old school when you use a word like pake on this show.
Right?
I was like, oh, Dean Wong, pigeon master.
That's right, yes. Yeah, that's a whole other story. But I actually talk about pigeon in my last, I think it was in my last Father of Oz blog, because it was forbidden at home for us.
It is forbidden.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, my father, that's what he learned to speak coming here. That's what was made available to him. That's the English that he knew, was pidgin. But for me, it was about him providing a different life. And to be honest with you, when he was raising me in the 70s and throughout, he didn't believe that Chinese people would be widely accepted in America during that time. You have to remember that was the time of civil rights movement and things of that nature.
But the 70s was the greatest era of Chinese kung fu movies on Saturday matinee ever.
Right. And let me tell you how that had an impact. Later, when I was in college at UCLA, and this was way past then, I had professors and teachers in my theater classes that told me that unless I did kung fu, I probably would never find any roles in media. So you can see that thinking still existed, you know, way into the future. But that's not what he wanted for me. You know, he wanted a life of medicine or law or, you know, architecture or something of that nature, and didn't feel that we would succeed, you know, if we were quote unquote too Chinese.
Wow.
And that was sort of, you know, I always had that in my mind growing up, you know, so there were places where, of course, at home we used chopsticks to eat, but when we went on public, you know, I had to use a fork because we didn't want to appear too Chinese, you know. So, you know, that's part of it.
My parents made me promise never drink Budweiser because they didn't want me to appear too Caucasian.
Oh, I thought you were going to say too redneck. No.
Ouch. All right, we're getting ready to wrap up the show. Let's talk Camp Mua real quick.
Camp Mua is coming up right around the corner. It always happens around the second week of June. This is one of the programs of Imua Family Services. It has a 36-year tradition where a camp that is designed for school-age children with special needs and disabilities and developmental concerns get to come to camp and have a very typical recreational overnight camp experience. They're away from their families, which they never get to be. They're away from their caregivers, which they seldom get to be. They're away from all their medical providers and all of that sort of thing, and being fully taken care of and encompassed at camp, but for the sole purpose of them having fun. And we take those many campers and we integrate them with a lot of camp counselors who typically are seniors in high school and college students who come back, and there's nearly 200 of those volunteers that come back to work with the campers. And those campers are teamed up with a team of caregivers that know the personal history of each of the children and work with them to make sure that they have the best camp experience for that entire week. And it does provide an opportunity for that inclusive kind of living that they often don't get to experience at home. The teenagers who become their caregivers often become their role models and their own superheroes, because, you know, one parent used an example that her daughter who has Asperger's and autism, that goes to a local high school here, and that no one ever sits with her in the cafeteria. You know, she's gone to high school all these years and no one would ever sit with her in the high school cafeteria. But at Camp Mua, she's the star of the show, and all of the high school students and the people that are there are interacting with her and caring for her and friending her in a way that she doesn't get to experience year-round at school. So that's where that opportunity to have those kinds of friendship exists.
Okay.
So that's coming up real quick.
Yeah, real quick. It's not officially a camp unless, are there s'mores?
Of course there are s'mores. Campfire songs and s'mores.
S'mores and campfire songs. See, you are a superhero, man. I don't
do it. I just happen to lead a team of people that is very compassionate about everything we do, and I'm
the Justice
one
League.
who feels blessed. Yes, they are the Justice League, exactly.
Dean Wong, thank you so much for coming on the
thank
show.
you.
And if anybody wants to look up any more information about you besides doing like me and Googling you, any websites, things like that?
They should go to emuafamilyservices.org. We have a mobile app that they can download and put on their phone if they want. It's absolutely free, and stay in touch with us. They can find us on Facebook at Emua Family, Twitter at Emua Family, Instagram at Emua Family. Participate in any of our social media. I will completely interact with you personally on all of that, so you can find me there as well.
Okay, well, and thank you for a great show today, man.
Oh, no, thank you. It was fun.
All right. Well, tomorrow we're going to have the Made in Maui people here talking about more great stuff here right on our island. And this week we're actually going film festing. Yay.
Awesome.
Yeah. Until tomorrow, though, we'll see you then.